Good afternoon and welcome to this week's edition of Sunday Night Live, the automotive show where we talk about all things automotive. I love it because I get to bring on the experts that share with us what they do in their space that makes us all better. And I'm really excited. I'm always really excited because I'm just a happy guy. But I've got Sean Reyes here from Recallmasters who's going to share with us some of the things that they're doing in the space. You know, recalls is an interesting animal because it's something that affects the safety and performance of your car. And people don't always think about it, but they should. And I'll give you a perfect example. I have a Subaru Legacy, which I love. We have had 6 Subarus in the family. Not a Subaru plug, we just happen to like the cars. But the first month I had the car, I ran it dry twice. Not once, but twice. One time my buddy Neil and I were coming home from dinner. I turned onto his road and the car just conked out in the middle of nowhere. That's weird. He says, "Do you have gas?" Well, the tank says empty, but on all my other cars, when the tank says empty, other than my 66 Mustang, when that tank hit E, the car stopped like dead in its tracks. There was no reserve. But all my other cars, when it says empty, don't worry about it. Got another week to go. But that was the first time. The second time I ran it dry, luckily I was right at home. Apparently, the car was on an angle sufficient to starve it for fuel, so when I went to start it, it wouldn't start. I had to call AAA. What I found out later was I got a letter from Subaru about a recall. It's a brand new car, but I didn't know this. And the letter said, by the way, don't pay attention to your gas gauge as far as thinking that you have more gas in it than you do. As soon as you get a quarter tank, fill it right away, because there's an issue where we have to flash the computer and you need to make an appointment. I kind of wish I knew that before I ran it dry twice, but I didn't. So the point behind that is recalls is an incredible opportunity to generate more revenue, because imagine this. I'm sitting in my office and I get a phone call from a call center that says, "Hey, by the way, your car has 2 recalls that affect the performance and the safety of your vehicle. We wanted to let you know." Maybe I'm the 3rd owner, and I know people struggle trying to find the right owners of cars. So I get this call that says there's 2 safety and performance recall that affects my car, and if the store's sharp, they'll have drop-off and pickup available to come pick up my car. So I'd be sitting back there scratching my head saying, wait a minute, you just called me to make me aware of a recall, and you're telling me you're going to come pick my car up to take care of it? Man, sign me up. Imagine if my car needs work and you call me and say, "Hey, listen, by the way, your car's in here. There's a nail in the tire or something." I'm going to be like, yeah, go ahead and do it. If you have my car there anyway, you might as well do it. So, Sean, welcome to the show, man. I want you to tell everybody a little bit about you and how you got into this crazy business of ours and what drives you, pun intended.
Thanks, Paul. Pleasure to be here. Tremendously honored to be around such an awesome industry and some individuals that certainly a complete family of people that from all stretches of life. And that's kind of how I got into the business. Let me reverse back time and go back to 1986. I was graduating high school after taking 2 periods of auto shop for 4 years in a row. I was convinced I was headed to be a technician, but I had some pretty darn good grades. Pretty sharp kid at the time, very focused on making something of myself. And I went to school to be the next pioneer in automotive design, intending to go to Detroit and redesign the next line of cars. And then became a mechanical engineering student, and within a semester and a half, figured out that I didn't know jack crap about thermodynamics and CAD drawing, and I just kind of slipped back into some other familiar skills that I had, and changed my major to marketing, and lost the dream. I just thought, okay, that's it. You know, I'm not going to follow automotive. I was still working on my 68 Chevelle, rebuilding it from the ground up. Beautiful thing. When I got finished, I was guzzling more gas than a college student could afford. And then it got stolen from my driveway. So sad tale. But, you know, fast forward years later, I graduated with my marketing degree, a minor in communications, and then worked in marketing and advertising, B2B as well as B2C. So I was doing a lot of customer direct campaigns for .coms at the time, insurance companies, mortgage companies, you name it, in the advertising and marketing space. And then about 12 years ago, I took on an automotive client, and then another, and then another, and then another, and just found myself back into this amazing industry. It was my first love, so I come full circle. You know, it's a first love automotive guy, and it inspired me a few years ago to break my tools back out, and I rebuilt my '72 Chevy C10 from the ground up as well. So one of these days I'll share pictures with everybody. But yeah, so I'm happy to be here and happy to share what I've learned along the way, and in that process, of course, connected with some colleagues of mine that were exploring recalls as a means of driving service revenue, bringing cars into the service drive. There's obviously some unique attributes about recalls. Number one, that they can only be repaired by the authorized franchise dealership. So here's a great opportunity to steer some traffic away or win back traffic that maybe had defected to independents. And number two, if you can provide an optimum level of experience for that consumer, and then double down on that by not charging them a single dime for that repair, it turns out that 52% of them are loyal to that dealership, and will opt in for CP revenue. 39% of them will return in the next 12 months for additional service. 6 to 9% of them, depending on the brand, will then purchase their next vehicle from that dealership. So there was all kinds of spin-off opportunities that came from that I thought, we're onto something here. It was kind of a magical culmination that once started off as just being a data company. We were, you know, using technology to find these second, third, fourth generation owners that the factory couldn't. And then we stumbled upon basically a full service solution for dealers so that we could carry all the heavy lifting for them, manage all the communications, take care of all the data, handle all the technology, basically a fully outsourced recall department for the average dealer, complete with a call center that schedules the appointments directly with the consumers. So when you talk about delivering cars into the service drive, that's what we do. And that's our every effort is on that. So heavy lifting sometimes, but yeah.
Well, anything worthwhile doing is work. And
right.
It's a great product. Kurt Von Annen says, I ran a recall campaign direct to consumer while at Suzuki. Quite the learning experience. That's a great thing about technology today, right? I tell people, you don't have to know it. You just have to know somebody that does. And
right.
What I mean by that is, why not leverage the technology that's already built out and doing it? Jeff says, free money. What's not to like? Mike says, you bet, Jeff. Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible tool, because as you said, they have to go to the OEM for that. When 7 in 10 customers choose not to return to any dealer, this is 100% captive audience, because nobody in the aftermarket can do that recall unless they bring it into the dealer on the customer's behalf, which is a trend that I'm starting to see. That's a dangerous trend for dealers, It's not so much dangerous trend for the aftermarket shops because it builds the trust and rapport with them. But on the dealer side, you need to do anything and everything possible to capture this. I want to play a video. I don't know if everybody's seen it yet, but man, I mean, if this doesn't say, wow, I don't know what does. So check this out.
When we first launched Recallmasters, we had a record-setting month.
The results have been fantastic.
The ROI is amazing.
The numbers just don't lie.
All in all, it's been great success for us.
A lot of times we have the address of the customer that originally bought the car, and we don't know that that car is passed on to another owner or sometimes even 2 or 3 owners.
The ability to track that car after the first transaction is very difficult to do. And Recallmasters, with the amount of data they aggregate, they do a great job identifying those cars in the marketplace and connecting us to them through their recall program.
Recallmasters has actually increased our RO volume, brought back customers that we haven't seen in 2, 3, 4 years. And now we're getting a second opportunity to get them in the service, build new relationships, and definitely turn the experience around that they've had in the past.
We're Recallmasters disciples at this point. I recommend them to any dealer that we work with.
Revenue's there, the car count's there, the numbers just don't lie.
We're on the Recallmasters team and intend to be for quite a while.
I mean, that's powerful, man. You know, we talk about the defections, but yet here is something that brings them back, that holds their hands and walks them back into the building. I mean, I don't know too much. I don't know too many things that are more powerful than that. And the numbers that you relayed before, as far as what it means to dollar amounts and,
Right.
and propensity to buy their next car. I mean, that's, you know, my wife's Italian, so I'm going to say that's stronger than garlic.
Well, I'd like to thank our team that really kind of behind the scenes makes it look a lot easier than it really is. I mean, I'll put it to you, when we started this company, we didn't necessarily intend to sell a direct-to-dealer solution. Our intent was to, we were already aggregating data, right? Not only the data on recalls and not only NHTSA recalls, but also voluntary recalls, which to some degree are invisible to the average dealer. I mean, unless you're looking at your own brand, you have no idea those off brands that you're bringing onto your lot as part of a trade-in or maybe even at auction, what liabilities you're bringing onto your lot. So we knew we had to aggregate all that data as well. And then owner data, right? Not only original owners, but as these vehicles change hands at a more rapid rate than you can ever keep track of, you know, you're looking at second, third, fourth generation owners for as long as 20 years. I mean, you know, I think back in '86 when I rebuilt my Chevelle, I mean, I think about it now. To me, that was a classic muscle car, and yet at the same time, it was less than 20 years old. So these cars today are lasting a lot longer and are on the road, and they're still exchanging hands. So it's nearly impossible for the average dealer. I mean, if it's nearly impossible for the OEM to keep track of it, imagine the dealer. So we intended to aggregate this solution and offer it to the factories, offered it to the DMS providers, offer it to other people who were already in the dealer workflow. But we recognize that third pillar, right? So you talk about the data and the technology, that third pillar of communications was missing. And you could say, well, the factory kind of does all this communications well, and you could probably do it out of your own dealership as well. But if you don't have the data for the owner who currently owns the vehicle, in fact, even today from a technology standpoint, there's still cars coming through the service drive that are not being checked for a recall, which astonishes me when you think of the liability associated with that. And we just knew, right, so we had to get involved in the communications piece, building out a call center, building out all the multi-channel communications, multi-touch points over a full year campaign to get in front of these consumers and put together a compelling offer that would get them to take action. So it's super heavy lifting, but all three of those pillars seamlessly working together to manage this for the dealer. That's really our secret sauce.
And Robert Sebastian, my buddy, brought this to light for me. Because if you Google search lawsuits because of safety items that consumers were not made aware of when their car went through a dealership, it's in the millions of dollars. And Sebastian says, why wouldn't customers return for what's needed and free? Right? I mean, it's a no-brainer. But yeah,
well, I'm going to give you some, Paul, because I say this to every dealer, and then I'm always told, well, we have signed disclosures, right? And I think every dealership has signed disclosures, kind of laying out what the recall is. But I'll bet that the average dealership does not recognize that does not mitigate a product liability lawsuit. It protects from lemon laws where the consumer bought the car and says, oh, I see that there's a recall in there, I want to return it. Well, a signed disclosure will protect you from that. But it does not protect you if that vehicle then goes on to be in an accident and injures not only the owner of that vehicle, but the passengers and anybody else on the road. If there's a product liability associated with that recall, you're going to be sued. And that signed disclosure will be admitted by the plaintiff's attorney as evidence that you willingly and knowingly sold a dangerous vehicle to his client. So it's a double-edged sword. I think dealers are in a precarious situation when they believe that a signed disclosure will take care of those things, and yet the truth of it is it's really a problem. It's a real liability, and it could take your dealership down. So I'm not a lawyer. I don't even play one on the weekends, but I advise you to talk to your counsel and learn more about what really is, what are the real dangers behind the vehicles that you sell from your used car lot that have a recall. And there's a lot better way. There's a way to get those vehicles repaired, even off-brand vehicles with a neighboring dealer that is happy to trade their on-brand with the off-brand. And this is the kind of partnership that we need in our industry right now, dealer to dealer, franchise dealer to franchise dealer, all in the name of safety, all to protect the consumer. It restores our good name in the industry.
And talk about a way to differentiate, right? To a consumer, every dealership for the most part, unless it's an old school dealership that hasn't had a makeover yet, they all seem the same. There's not a whole lot of differentiation. Whereas if you had a store that made this a part of their DNA to go after this business, I mean, that's a huge differentiator right there.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that, we were watching dealers touting free Wi-Fi and coffee, it's the differentiator. We've come a long way since then. And, not only like in offering things like a restaurant or childcare, these are nice, but really have very little to do with automotive. Instead, we're really helping our dealers connect to the community with a message of vehicle safety and a recall remedy, right? These are really relevant attributes that also make a very direct impact on the consumer and your ability to acquire them as new customers or to retain them if they're already doing business with you. So when there's 1 in 4 vehicles on the road today that still have an open recall, you've got to ask yourself whether you're proactively addressing their need, offering a resource to quickly check their VIN, providing a service to actively monitor for future recalls, and confidently standing behind the products that you sell. And if there's a recall, you got to be also part of the remedy. And I know it's difficult in today's age where staff is a little tight. I'm sure everybody's feeling this pinch on the technicians, but we work with a number of different dealerships that are doing some really innovative things, and I'm going to share that with you guys today. But at the end of the day, the consumer, when you ask them about recalls, they view them as a transparent act on behalf of the dealership. So the days of, oh, I don't want to talk about my recalls because it damages the brand. It really doesn't. Only if you ignore those recalls or you don't provide a solution to remedy them. If you're upfront with your customers about those recalls and you reach out to them proactively to offer them, a compelling reason to come in and an amazing level of service when they do bring them in, they're very loyal to those dealers. They see that as transparency, and that really is a differentiation for them.
And you have a tool that it captures the data.
Right.
You have a tool that a customer can log into, give some basic information, because nobody's opposed to giving some basic information in order to get information, especially something as important as a recall. Hey, would you like to be notified if and when your vehicle has a recall?
Right.
Talk about brilliant. You're giving them something while they're giving you something tangible in return, their information.
Right.
And I just saw recently that the numbers of the amount of time that cars are on the road today crossed the 12-year mark. I think it's 12.1 years or something. I saw it somewhere today, earlier. I mean, that's a long time on the road, and cars do change hands.
Right.
And as you said, there's the OEM can't do it.
No, I mean, look at we work directly with a number of factories to supplement additional contact data, simply because, like I said, the ability for you to follow the vehicle, right? We're aggregating multiple VIN source data to find out where are the last transactions that these VINs are occurring, who is the owner, how do you reach those individuals, everything from email addresses to their address of their location where they live, their cell phone numbers if they integrate in there. We use all that as the touch points as we go out to find these individuals and communicate with them. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to be able to not only, most consumers, in fact, don't even know that they've got a recall. So first of all, it's just notifying them that they've got a recall and giving them through our call center, one phone call does it all, right? They want one throat to choke, and that's what that call center does. Right now, I don't know if most guys don't really call into their own dealership and see what the experience is, but I dare you to call your dealership and say, you think you've got a recall, can somebody check and see if they've got a recall? Watch how long that call takes. So we've streamlined that, not only to offer all the information related to the recall, the drive, don't drive, what's the remedy, are parts available, is there a lift, no lift? We align that with the dealer amenities. Maybe it's just an airbag, which can be repaired by the dealer's mobile service, right? Talk about convenient for the consumer, and we can dispatch that mobile unit together working with the dealership. So there's a lot of ways that I think dealers are figuring out, especially after the pandemic, that if you want to win those customers back from the independents, and now more than ever, right? This fog of the pandemic is starting to lift, and the independents are coming back. And if you want to pay the price game with the independents, that's up to you, but there's a better field to play on. And there's a compelling offering that you can deliver to your consumers in your PMA, and to stay on top of them, you're going to need more than what the factory is offering in terms of their programs. It's just not compelling enough.
Yeah, you're not going to compete with the aftermarket unless you get down and dirty into the pricing arena. And let's face it, the overhead at a dealership is greater than the overhead at a lot of independent repair shops. That's just a fact.
Right.
So there's, you're not discounting your recall work. It's coming to you if you go chase. And when you just think about the sheer numbers of what the opportunity is, if 1 in 4 cars on the road, and I don't even know how many cars are on the road, but it's a lot. If 1 in 4 have an open recall, that's a huge opportunity when you actually run the numbers. So are you able to, so I would imagine, since you have the data, so I could say, hey, I'm XYZ Motors,
Yep.
Niantic, Connecticut. My customer base is X amount of mile radius around the dealership right now, but it doesn't mean I can't go further.
Sure.
Right? If there's limitations on who's doing particular service, so I would be willing to bet that you could tell me, okay, so here's your circle, and here's what's available in an available circle to you that you're not touching. Do you want that business?
Right.
It's a simple yes or no.
I'll do you one better. Yes, we can do that, but I'll do you one better. Not only can we break it out how many vehicles by zip code, I can show you year, make, and model. I can show you exactly what recalls. I can tell you whether they need a lift or no lift. I can tell you whether parts are available. I can tell you whether we can segment out whether there's a certain percentage of them that can be handled by a mobile technician. In fact, one of the things that we're also doing is working with dealerships who are recognizing that there are 3 times more recalls than airbags in the software and electronics segment. So those don't typically require a lift. In fact, they don't need a master technician. So there's an opportunity for those dealerships that are doing a better job at recruiting younger techs over, and you can put them to work immediately, generating some significant revenue in those areas where they can have an immediate impact. And I think that's what these young kids, in fact, my son is headed down that path. I have a nephew that's already a technician. But that's what they want to feel like they're a part of the team. They want to be a contributing member of the team. So not only can I break all that data out for you, and I'm willing to do that for everybody on the show today, anybody listening to this podcast, reach out to me and I will run for you an opportunity report that will kind of break that down. There's no sales component that comes to that. We'll just kind of share with the data. And if you ever need to know more, you'll reach out to me again. But the other piece of that, the other little nugget that I was wanting to kind of lead this with was the thing that we call the Market Smart Report. And that is vehicles of your brand that are sitting on independent or off-brand dealerships, sitting on their lots. And you can go pour through that, have your BDC call those individuals to see whether your flatbed truck can go over and retrieve those vehicles or maybe even repair those vehicles on their lot. So they don't want to be selling a used car with an open recall, but they also don't want you to take it away from them for a week, to have it parked on your lot. So there's a lot of ways where efficiency needs to be applied in our industry, and we're finding more cooperation from dealerships. So
now Michael Larkin, my buddy from West Hartford, says, Sean, is the recall information public? Could I Google this information?
So NHTSA recall data is available. It's not VIN specific. Recallmasters data is VIN specific. So if you want to have a glimpse or a sneak peek at what our data results look like, go over to motorsafety.org, type in your 17-digit VIN, and that is our data that displays. It's not only a combination of NHTSA, which are the government mandated recalls, but also includes almost 100% aggregated collection of TSBs or other OEM voluntary recalls, which I don't want to get in the weeds here, and I don't want to slam the government, especially, if I get audited next year. But the reality is NHTSA is way behind on investigations, right? Cars are way more sophisticated now more than ever. Yeah. So the software and electronics potential recalls, right? They're just defects today. I mean, it's taken NHTSA that much longer to complete the investigations. So we're already tracking this now, where we're looking at the TSB today is really next year's government mandated recall by NHTSA. So we aggregate that data now just so that you as a consumer or as a dealer, you want to know what vehicles you're bringing on your lot. If they're off brand and you want to check, like, I don't know, I'm a Ford dealer, I'm taking a Subaru on trade. What am I bringing on my lot? You know, what's the liability here? You can check that with us for absolutely free on motorsafety.org. Now, we have some tools where if you were a client of ours, you can do some more bulk uploading of large lists. So every time you went out to the auction, you say, let me run all the VINs at the auction before I start buying anything. You could do that too with the customer. But today, free, we offer that on motorsafety.org, one VIN at a time.
Well, here's the beauty of the program. If I were to find out that a particular car, that one of my cars had a recall, then my normal course of action would be to go to my dealer, okay? But I don't know if the dealer's got that part in stock or not, and oftentimes they don't. With yours, you know the information ahead of time, and you are proactively reaching out. I'm sure you're not gonna call somebody that you don't have a part for and say, come on in, let me waste your time.
No, that's the last thing you wanna do.
Yeah, you know, we got this part coming in on order. Let's make your appointment for 2 weeks from now when the part is in stock, and we can take care of it all for you. We'll come pick up your car. We'll do it in your driveway. I mean, oh, Ron Overs, my buddy from Florida. Good evening, gentlemen. Recallmasters is simply awesome. He's just saying that because it's true.
Well, yeah, I mean, you were talking about like what wastes a dealer's time. It's not only reaching out to those consumers who no longer own the vehicle or no longer live at the address. I mean, all that communications dollars that you're spending to mail out a mailer or, you know, have a call center reach out to them or your BDC team reach out. It's frustrating, but then also to find some success by finally reaching that consumer, convincing them to come in, only to find out that the remedy's not available, right? There's no parts available. Like, I mean, yeah, you're going to do, I mean, that's more damage done. It's more frustrating for the consumer. So the one thing that we do right off the bat is run that assessment, looking at what's available and how do we want to prioritize. And it's all based on what the dealer wants to do. Like if their bays are booked out for 3 weeks, but they've got available mobile units, we would do that, right? Or if they've got, you know, they don't have any lifts available, but they've got an area here to the side that they can really focus on some software and airbag recalls. Sure, that's a great way to get your technicians, especially your younger technicians, off and running. There's all kinds of ways to generate revenue. Just, you know, how creative do you want to get? How much do you want to think out of the box? I can tell you this. We do business with 9 out of 10 top dealer groups in the nation. And while they are all at capacity, they are all screaming for more work. They all are enthusiastic to go and address consumers who are making not only decisions about their dealerships, but also the brands that they're going to invest in the next generation. Especially with software and electronics and the complexity of cars, they want to know that the brands that they're buying and investing in are going to have the support. So it's a major initiative for most factories right now.
And even with them having lots of business, nobody has too much business. Everybody can accommodate more business. A buddy of mine, they're putting in some more trucks into their mobile service fleet. They're gonna have 10 mobile units to be able to go out and tackle not only regular jobs, but also a lot of these recall jobs, which has just found money. Thomas Pena, hey, sorry I'm late. Welcome to the show, man. And Steve Chesson says, my job is get them in. Why don't dealers let their BDC loose on this? Well, actually, they don't really have to, right? Or do you have a hybrid program? How does that work?
No, so our program is completely outsourced. So we're going to lift that heavy burden from you. But yeah, there are elements where you said, how do I keep my BDC busy? So we would make available to them like the data that goes with, in other words, service declines. Service declines are huge with most dealerships. I bet you if you ran your last 6 months service declines, about 20% of them will have an outstanding recall. That's a perfect reason to call them back. Right. It's a huge number.
That's a hard stat.
Well, it's not only what you missed the last time they came in the service drive, but it's all the new recalls being announced on a daily basis. So, you know, that's where we do have. It's funny. We talk to consumers who say, "Well, I just came in like 3 months ago for a recall." It's like, you've got another one. We've got to take care of that as well. So there's opportunities where there's no intention to upsell a consumer as long as you're delivering good quality service and you're helping them retain the value of their vehicle asset, especially especially if they had a service decline last time. What a great opportunity to remind them that, hey, you know, we took a look at that transmission flush that you declined again, that the fluid's, you know, really now in dire straits. You want to take care of that this time around. And so we're helping these dealers find opportunities for the BDC to get involved. Most BDCs are busy enough trying to secure the appointments and just verify that the appointment's coming in. But for us, we can provide them with the data to do everything like the Market Smart report, reach out to neighboring lots to find out if they, you know, want to make that, you know, vehicle available for repair. And also, you know, again, all the service decline activity. There's so many ways that a BDC can get involved. We're not here to replace them. We're here to supplement the effort. And God knows, with 1 in 4 recalls, there's plenty of work for everybody.
No, for sure. And, you know, to your point of there's an additional recall that may have happened. That's so true, because the other day my daughter and I were on the phone and she was telling me that, you know, she doesn't live too close to the dealer, but she was telling me that she's, you know, I've got to go back there. She said, I just had a recall done and now there's another one I need to have done. So now I've got to go back there. So yeah, so there's huge opportunity.
No, I know, like I said, and you know, there's some train of thought, which is, and in fact, I'm dealing with this now with the idea that a TSB is not a recall, right? So let's not call a service action a recall. We've done quite a bit of consumer surveys, and the reality is the consumer isn't afraid of the word recall. Like, it's not synonymous with immediate danger. It's synonymous with transparency and a manufacturing defect, which they will tell you is all part and parcel to the manufacturing process, as long as you're transparent about it and you're honest about what the risks are and what the remedies are. And if your dealer can accommodate these individuals for quick, efficient service, they're happy to bring their vehicles in. But they need that one call that does it all. They're not going to chase down all the information, try to call the dealership to find out what amenities, am I going to get a loaner car? Should I drive the car to begin with? I mean, these are very lengthy phone calls, which I can even share with your team if they want to listen to what consumers are asking. But that's all data for us that has helped us streamline the kinds of communications that we send to a consumer, so that we can turn a 15-minute phone call into a 5-minute transaction that results in a repair appointment being made.
And to your point about transparency and goodwill and just doing something good for your business and for the customer and the community, I'm going to take you down a little memory lane here. Company called Toyota was launching their luxury division called Lexus. Mm-hmm. And initially, a lot of people, they laughed. A $35,000 Toyota? Are you out of your mind? Are you crazy? They launched. And very soon into that launch, they had an issue. They had a recall.
Right.
And they were able to establish their mark on the industry in how they handled that recall. Because the first thing is admitting there's a recall fresh out of the gate.
Right.
That's big. And 2, they made it ultra convenient for the customers. They picked up all the cars. They did the recalls. I think there was somebody out in Alaska somewhere that even flew the technician out to do this. So they picked up the cars, they did the recall, there's no charge to the consumer, and I think they filled the tank of gas. I mean, they went above and beyond where anybody was certainly at the time on a recall, and that set that brand on a path that I don't know if anybody's really ever come close to. In my opinion, I'm partial. I've had 3 or 4 Lexus cars myself, so I have a sweet spot for Lexus as well. I switched to Subaru because I prefer the all-wheel drive there. But yeah, so you can set a tremendous amount of goodwill for your brand, for your store,
right?
How you implement a successful recall program.
Right.
My favorite retired tech, Ron Usher, says, if you let the customer know you're concerned of their safety, you gain their trust. Yeah, right. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Now, one of the things that we try to do, like I said, these recalls are global in nature and at least national in nature as it pertains to NHTSA and the factory themselves. But all the service and all the solutions and all the remedy are local. It's the dealership down the street. And that's where dealerships have yet to really take an advantage of that. I know our clients are through a piece of technology that we call Recall Department Web Page, right? So we integrate on your website vehicle VIN check, right? So you can write on your website, right? Don't send them to the factory. If you send them to the factory, you might not get them back again, right? So anybody on your dealership marketing team, they know how valuable that web traffic is. So you spend all this money trying to optimize your website. You're doing service AdWords on Google. You're doing Facebook marketing and advertising. You bring them to the website and then you immediately push them off to the factory. You're just throwing money out the window. Instead, why don't you offer recall check right there, right? So immediately you're differentiating your core value as vehicle safety and that we care about our community. Here's what we're doing, right? That VIN check is not just for your brand. It is all brands. We will complete a VIN check free for the consumer of all brands, right? You can refer that business over to a sister store or make a friend of a colleague that you've been meaning to send business their way. So that's all good stuff. It's all part and parcel to this. Right. Safety is a community or our industry, what we're trying to do. But more importantly, we're able to do lead capture, which in the digital marketing sense, and that's kind of like my background. I never got to work in a dealership and turn the wrench. In my dreams, I do. But so from a digital marketing standpoint, one of the most difficult things to do is optimize a landing page. And if you're really good at what you do, you create lead capture. That is that traffic that comes to that page will freely enter their information, not only their name and their VIN and their vehicle information, but their email address and their phone number so that they can be notified of the recall in detail. Or if they don't have a recall, we'll reach out to them with ongoing vehicle monitoring. Now that lead is also shared with the client. It only goes to the client. You have a unique landing page that is just yours, and you can then, because of the opt-in, reach out to them for other dealership promotions and offers. But yeah, that's clear differentiation, and it fits in the digital marketing space. And many of our dealers are using that in the social space where a message of safety is very relevant in the social space, probably more relevant than I've got a car to sell you. Like safety and that power of saying we're here with our community, with our owners, we are pushing a safe message, absolutely is compelling for an audience that is in the social networks. So I think those are great ways that dealers can find differentiation, deliver a great message, and by chance make some significant revenue.
And what's convenient is everybody's really busy. And look, let's face it, in the blink of an eye, it's 6 months to a year later, we can't remember everything. Now I get so many messages on LinkedIn. And every once in a while, I'll find a message that's fallen through the cracks. Somebody that spoke to a year and a half ago that I meant to speak with again, but so many messages came in after that. Unless I put them into Salesforce for a specific purpose, you know, the multitude of messages that I get per day on LinkedIn, I'm not going to put all those in Salesforce because those are not all opportunities. Some of those are just networking, right? And I'm not going to be a slave to my CRM. So for me, it's a whole lot easier that, hey, I know I'm going to run my car out till it dies or very close to it. So how convenient would it be for me to supply the necessary information for you to be able to communicate to me whenever there was something that needed to be taken care of. So it's, for me, it's out of sight, it's out of mind, but yet you have this tool, it's a farming tool that churns, it turns regularly, it's a machine. And as the opportunities pop up here and there, those messages go out, right? It's like autopilot.
Yeah, no, and it's also, again, it's being respectful of the consumer's time, realizing that, you know, I don't know if you've taken a look at a factory recall notice. It's very incomplete. It doesn't feel, it's not written for at an 8th grade level, right? So there's a lot of confusion when you get that notice. So most consumers fold it up and just put it somewhere where they're like, I'll get around to that at some point. There's a lot of consumers just throw those things away. But for those that take action, the burden still falls on them. And that's the difference of what we do when we send out our notices. All that recall information is rewritten at an 8th grade level. We're explaining in detail what the recall is about and what they need to do about it. What is the remedy at the dealership? What are the amenities at the dealership? When is the dealership open? What phone number should I call? And that centralized call center that we pick up where we answer the phone like, Paul Meyer Ford Recall Department, how may I help you? It's very personalized to your dealership. The consumer has no idea that they're calling a call center that's managed by a third party. At the end of the day, they just want to be able to have one conversation to thoroughly understand what's going on with this recall, understand how do I drop off my vehicle, is there shuttle service, do I get a loaner car, how long will it take, all the questions that go typically with service, but the complexity of a recall. Yeah. And then we'll walk that last mile and schedule the appointment directly in the dealer's scheduling software. So these are all, that's what the consumer needs. At the end of the day, if you're not delivering what consumers want, it's no wonder why they're really not taking action on factory notices. So
now, I want to just bring up some numbers again, because there's a lot of misconceptions around recalls. And the one big misconception that I think exists out there is customers with recalls are cheap. They don't want to spend any money, right? How many times have you heard that?
Sure.
Is that excuse number one or number two?
Yeah, no, it's right at the top. I mean, the number one objection we face is that, you know, we don't have enough tax, but we already addressed that. But yeah, that the average customer is cheap. They're not going to buy any. You know, if you're hearing that a lot, it's typically because you're not rolling out the red carpet. You're not really creating an environment where you're trying to encourage owners who have a very dangerous recall to go. You're treating them no differently than any other customer. And I'm saying you should roll out the red carpet. There's a defect on their vehicle that is of a significant safety concern. It was no fault of the consumer. The burden is on us. So when I hear, you know, I mean, we don't have enough tax or parts aren't available, like, that's our burden. We got to lift that off the consumer. That's not their fault. It's our fault. What are we doing to remedy that for them? So all I'm asking is that look for those opportunities where you can enhance that service experience for the consumer. And it starts with just really fully understanding that I wouldn't try to upsell right off the bat. I would do a thorough inspection of that vehicle. In fact, the call center, we ask the consumer ahead of time. While your vehicle's with us in the service department, would you like to have a complimentary service inspection? And they all agree, yes. Why not? Why wouldn't you want to do that? If you take an active role in helping the consumer protect their asset, they're also more inclined to at least arm themselves with information. Maybe they're not going to take advantage of every line item on the ticket, but yeah, I mean, for
not the first time either. But what was that dollar amount again?
So average RO is $566 per RO.
$566. Average RO over time on a free repair.
Right.
Did you catch that? On a free repair?
Yeah, 52% of them will opt in for CP revenue. 39% of them come back within the first 12 months. 6 to 9% will go on to purchase their next vehicle from you. I mean, it's every dealer's different, every brand is different, every market is different. That's why I think we take a lot of time to kind of work with our dealer clients to say, don't expect any of this is going to be just like, the light bulb goes on, and don't think of it as a program. And the last thing is, don't think of it as a marketing program. Recalls and vehicle safety should be innate to your DNA as a dealership. If you want to really create differentiation in your community and win over customers for the long haul, be there for them at their moment of need. And guess what? That moment of need is when they have a recall that your factory generated. So why wouldn't you take that burden on? So I just think you invite people to, and we know this much is true, is that consumers are willing to drive outside of your PMA. So if you aren't prepared to handle this very dangerous recall, they will go to the neighboring dealership. And that's not a threat. I don't put a gun to anybody's head like, you got to buy this program. Like, I'm just saying, be more attentive to these consumers, because they're thinking about the child that is sitting in the passenger seat 2 feet away from an airbag that could explode and kill them. That's their mentality, that when they are ready to take action, they intend to do so within the first 6 months. So if we make it easy for them, they will.
Yeah, the path of least resistance, that the consumer will have no problem driving down the street to the person that's going to look out for their safety. Now, you know what's interesting also is that in my travels, I rarely see anybody promoting this on the dealer level, when it's something that's so easy to promote, and it's so much goodwill that you're just showing the customer that you really care about them first. Right.
In fact, I think that's just because everybody's super busy right now. It's crazy, right? Like the pace of the dealership environment right now is. So I don't expect them to kind of lead with recalls. There's so many issues to attend to. I wish they would, because that's a great place to push not recalls, but so much vehicle safety and promoting vehicle safety. But we're doing that on behalf of the dealer. So when we are organizing our complete communications campaign, we're the ones pushing out the messages out there to those vehicle owners in the market and hitting them in several different ways, multi-touch point, multi-channel. When we look at the data, like which age groups, model year car respond to which types of communications, we can go deep dive into that data. But yeah, I think some of the most successful dealerships that we work with are those that are then taking it the next level, like running social media campaigns, right? Running Google search terms, going beyond service. I don't know if you've used this optimized Google campaign for the word service, but recalls, maybe there's about half the traffic, but it costs about 1/3 the price. So why not optimize for Toyota recalls in Napa, California, right? that's going to cost you a third the price of the service, right? And you don't have to fight competitors.
Yeah.
And the traffic is substantial. Like, that's a free tip. Take it and run with it. I mean, I want everybody doing this. You don't have to do business with us. Just find a way to get the data in your hands. I'm happy to share that with everybody. If I can arm each one of you with some data and some knowledge, some understanding, you'll invite us into the conversation. It doesn't have to end up being Recallmasters. It serves you, but I'm hopeful that for the good name of our industry, that you find a way to get involved and you find a way to make these vehicles safer, especially as the complexity and the electronics and the software. I mean, it's scary to me what this next generation of self-driving vehicles is going to do. All I can tell you is there's no shortage of recalls, so get on the ball, you know?
Now, do you have, I don't know if you have numbers like this, but do you have numbers on where recalls are trending, where they've been, where they are now, and where they're projected to go to?
Yes, no, in fact, this is a shout out to my friend Ron Overs there at Fixed Ops Magazine. In the next issue, I think we're talking a little bit about that, unless he cut my article out. But I talk a lot about that, and we share a lot of that data. But yeah, without a doubt, I mean, airbags is still in the mix because we're replacing the airbags that we replaced.
Wow. Wow.
We replaced bad airbags with newer airbags that we need to, right? So, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're still looking at software and electronics recalls that are 3 times the amount. It's astonishing. And we're not yet at self-driving cars. We're not yet at fully battery operated electric vehicles yet. So it's interesting and a bit scary. Like, if we don't get on top of this issue now, we are just piling recalls on top of previous year's recalls, and that number will continue to escalate. In fact, if you ask the factories now, they say 1 in 5 vehicles. Well, the truth is they're not mandated to track 2nd, 3rd, 4th generation, only original owner vehicles. That's why their numbers don't look nearly as intimidating. Right, because I want facts out there. I'm gonna let dealers decide for themselves how they want to get involved. That's why I don't try to sell anything. I just try to provide information and data and help them see what dealers of their brands in markets just like theirs are doing to recoup opportunities that are only available through recalls.
Yeah, it's hard data.
Right.
You know, I love, and my buddy Paul Machine from Black Book, you know, we have data conversations. As easy as that sounds, but I mean, we're totally into the data because the data is apolitical.
Right.
It is
I don't have to spin it.
Purely numbers. Here's the history, and here is where it's projected to go. The cars are getting a lot more sophisticated. And the self-driving thing, you're right, that should scare a lot of people. And, you know, I saw something today. Tesla is rolling out a subscription-based program for their fully autonomous models. So, yeah, you can only imagine it's just going to go that much further. So not only are the opportunities there from a financial standpoint, but at the same time, they become more critical and more crucial because at this point, also the liability magnifies, right? I see financial opportunity and on the one hand, but I also see legal liability on the other hand, and the two go hand in hand up the middle.
No, you know? And listen, you know, and the dealership really is at the local level delivering the good name of the manufacturer. That's a model that is changing every single day. Yep. But I can assure you it matters to the consumer. They want support. They need support. And as these recalls get more dangerous and more prevalent, I hope that the factories do not give up on their local dealership. This is a partnership that, for the good of our industry, will need to be it's more important than ever. So, thanks to the guys out there that are doing the hard work, the men and the women, I should say, they're doing the hard work every day, working with customers in their community that are relying on them to deliver quality vehicles and safe vehicles. So my thanks to them.
Well, on that note, that brings us to the end of another show. The hour goes fast. Ron Usher, thank you, Paul and Sean. Safety first, great show.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Share this with your automotive community. Anybody that could benefit from the information, please share it with them. And Sean, after the show, if you go in and put your contact info and anything pertinent where somebody would want more information, that they can reach you right in the thread. You can't do it here. You have to do it through the post on LinkedIn. Because if you're like most people, I always remember what I forgot to ask while I had the opportunity to do it. And it's good to have this, additional point of contact.
For sure.
We'll reach out.
Sean at Recallmasters.com. It's just what it says right there. Sean at Recallmasters.com. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you very much for being on the show. And we'll see you guys next week on Sunday Night Live. Thanks for tuning in. Have a successful week.